It's also one thing that's kind of frustrated me is the fact that people are now like, oh, finally, like digital artists can make money. And it's just like, are you fucking kidding? Like, there's so many ways to make money, but this,
Right.
the problem I think with a lot of artists is that you kind of embrace this identity of being undervalued with everything.
Mhm.
And also the fact that most people are allergic to the concept of like, I don't do business stuff. I don't sell. I'm not a sellout. And all these kind of like weird psychological issues that
Yeah.
people have around money. So therefore they aren't making money. They're not, doing the things they need to do. But then suddenly with NFTs, it's okay.
Yeah.
So in general, like, there's so many ways. I mean, people go in Gumroad or whatever on the more kind of like very low level. There's your pocket money per month. I've got friends, some that we might have mentioned earlier on the podcast already, that are making over $1 million a year,
Yeah.
selling online, doing stuff without NFT. And yeah, I mean, that's where it's kind of interesting that people now are kind of like, oh yeah, you can do this thing. But yeah, ultimately, there's so many different ways that you could, make a lot of cash.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost kind of like they self-flagellate a little bit. Honestly, like for me personally, and this was even back whenever the band I was in, we would do interviews on the news, like the local news stations and radio interviews and stuff around our region. And I hated self-promoting it made me so uncomfortable. And that's even still like the NFT thing, like the main advice I get from my friends that are really successful, and they're like, dude, you got to promote this stuff. You got to promote yourself, promote your artwork and stuff like that. And to me, it's just like, like I hate having to be like, look at my stuff. Look how amazing it looks. You could own this and blah, blah, blah. And like, I think as artists, there's that certain element of imposter syndrome a little bit. There's that certain element of like, my work's not as good. It's not good enough. And so when you're promoting yourself,
they're going to see me as like I'm in it for the money.
Right, absolutely.
My identity.
Yeah, I'm a sellout. You're just trying to make money from your artwork, and it's like, well, if you can do something you love and you can make money at it, I mean, why not? It's like professional athletes. They're like, they're doing the thing that they love. They're getting paid for it, and I mean, I think to me that's like the ultimate dream. I mean, do what you're passionate about and getting paid for it. Like, absolutely. Why would you not?
Freedom. Like, as we talked about before, like before you might be working with all these clients that just make your life miserable, and therefore you want to make art because you're just so sick of it at the end of the day. Yeah. But suddenly, if you're doing something where it's like, wow, for once I get to make a living doing the thing that I care about, I'm passionate about, it changes everything. And it also means that for once you can say no to the clients you don't like. For me, I've told this story in the podcast a few times, but I had like a year where I decided to say no to everything unless it 100% aligned with me. And I was expecting like, okay, money's going to come in. Like this is going to be the weakest financial year I've ever had. And I tripled my revenue that year, which when you think about it is insane. And it was by saying no to most things, but it meant that the jobs I did say yes to, they were the ones that usually I might have been available for, or I might have not been willing to negotiate as hard if if they're pushing back on me. And just in general, it means that by saying no, you're available for the jobs that you actually want to do, or that has the FU money that, oh shit, you're paying me $1,000 an hour. Like when you do the math, I'll do that. In general, like money equals freedom. If you look at it that way, you're not so tied up in, am I selling out or anything? It's like, no, I'm investing myself. Just like when you mentioned before about athletes, they got to look at longevity of like, okay, I can only do this for 15 years, but I got to make sure I've set myself up for the next 30, 40 years.
Absolutely. As far as like client work goes, it definitely has freed me up being able to say, yes and no to certain clients. And I think the danger of any job, and it holds true, when you say you work for yourself as like a freelance artist, I think that this is still true, either whether you're in freelance or you're working for corporate or you're, pretty much any job. You don't want to feel like you're like working a slave wage, right? You don't want to feel like you have to take on all these crap. Like if clients come to you and say, well, we can pay you $500 for album artwork, and you're like, oh crap, what might be my only job I get this month or this week, so I have to take it. If I don't take it, I'm an idiot. And then you get stuck in that cycle of having to accept jobs that aren't necessarily going to be a good thing for you. And so, or, it may pay better, but the client might end up being a nightmare. obviously. Yeah. I mean, we've all run into that situation. And so I don't want to call it a safety net, but it kind of is, because if I'm like, you know what, I don't think that's going to be a good fit. Well, I don't have to worry about this month's or next month's bills because they're already taken care of because of, you know, for me, like the NFT stuff.
It's kind of like if you were just investing in Bitcoin and then the Bitcoin takes a dip, you're going to be like, oh, fuck, like, I guess I better go back to McDonald's or something and get a job. But if you're diversifying into real estate and like 100 other things, it's like, oh shit, that sucks. Well, you know, at least these things are doing good over here. And that's why I always think you got to have your main hustle and your side hustle, because ultimately, it means that if things were to go topsy-turvy in some way, there's always other revenue streams to kind of keep you afloat.
That's exactly right. Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, because I was the same way. I was like, how does this pretend crypto money become real money? And so, like, for example, what I do is I always keep a certain amount in Coinbase. So it's kind of like a simplified stock market, right? Cryptocurrency. So it goes up and down a lot, like pretty fast. Like, you know, you can make $2,000, you can lose $3,000, you can make $5,000 and lose it $2,000, like in a day. And so what you can do, you know, like kind of what I do is I keep a decent amount in there almost all the time. But then when it hits like really high, like it's the highest I've seen it, then I'll take a sizable chunk out, put that, now I got that in my bank. And then I leave the other in there to kind of ride the wave, and like I'll add to that and I let it go up even more. And then I take some chunk out and put it in my, so it's kind of like like I always try to explain, it's like a simplified stock market, but the possibility of the gains and losses are a lot higher and faster, but they can also be a lot more stressful if you let it be. You don't want to like have all your money, and like you're saying, you got to diversify, right? You don't want to have like everything in there, because when it goes down, you might have a heart attack. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what I've learned from it anyway.
I like the idea with NFTs that in general, yeah, like your social media following doesn't matter, because it's really interpretive art, but you know, it's what the person buying it really sees in it.
Right.